Today we're reviewing the La Sportiva Prodigio, a trail running shoes for technical trail, lightweight, reliable, perfect to really go fast on trail. I've tested them extensively, about 200 miles, and today we're reviewing the La Sportiva Prodigio. Hey, Simon here, welcome to my channel. I'm a trail and ultra runner. On my channel, you can follow my adventure racing 100 mile. Also, I'm providing a lot of tips video and some gear review. And for my gear review, what I try to do is I try to test just a few products that I'm very excited about, and I test them extensively. I use them in a 100 miler. I really shred them to pieces. You can see this used to be white shoes and now they're all brown and destroyed. And I want to share my experience with you, what I like about them, what I don't like about them, when I would use them and when I would use something else. And I think you can hear it from my tone. The La Sportiva Prodigio are shoes that I absolutely love. Very recently, we also reviewed the Akasha 2, which is also a shoe that I like, but I think this one is a little bit more circumstantial, a very stiff shoe, something that is very protective. It's great on snow, it's great on high mountain. But the Prodigio is way more universal. It's much more lightweight. It's very pleasant to run in these shoes, and I would use them much more frequently, which is why also they're a little bit more used than my good old Akasha. And it's because these were my go-to shoes, especially last fall when I was going on a trail run. I was using these shoes because I really enjoyed the feeling of running in these shoes. And this has culminated to me choosing specifically these shoes, the Prodigio, for one of the toughest ultramarathon that I've ever done, Diagonale des Fous Grand Raid on Ile de la Réunion. You can see my movie. It's really, I would say, one of the top 3 hardest ultra I've ever done. It's Tour des Géants, Euro 100, and Grand Raid Diagonale des Fous, an extremely technical course, mud, roots, rocks. You really have to have a good trail running shoes if you want to run on these trails, and you have to have good cushioning if you don't want to destroy your heel and your ankle. And these shoes were perfect for the task. So let's talk about what I love about these shoes. So these shoes, as you can see, they have pretty decent tread underneath that will be pretty sufficient when you're on mud. You're really sticking to the ground with that. I wish they were a little bit deeper than that and a little bit more aggressive. If we compare, for example, to these one on the Akasha, I actually prefer the Akasha a little bit for the underneath. Maybe that's a personal choice. But what I really preferred on these one compared to the Akasha is that they're much more flexible shoes. They're much more lightweighted. It's perfect for hot weather. This is very thin fabric here. So even though it was really hot on the Reunion Island, these shoes were perfect for that. Yes, it rained and I got my feet very soaked, but there's no shoes that would really actually prevent that. The amount of rain and river crossing that we had, at the end of the day, your shoes were gonna be soaked, and really there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it. And really to emphasize it, I think one of the reasons why I really like these shoes is that they stroke, for me, and it's always very personal, so you have to try different shoes, but they really stroke the perfect balance when it comes to the midsole and the absorption. You want something that is cushy, but not too cushy. You want something that is also responsive, something that you feel very confident on trail. If you were running, say, with pillows under your feet, it really would not be a good technical shoes, but at the same time, if it's concrete, that's also very painful. And this really was perfect to be able to run 100 miles in them, at least for me, but at the same time feel that I was very much in control. I could really go attack these corner, attack the downhill, and know that I would stick to the ground and really understand what was the trail underneath my foot specifically. Is it rocky? Is it muddy? Is it something that I'm going to slide as soon as I transfer my weight? So this was really allowing me to use all of my skill. And the other thing that I mentioned that I really like, they're very lightweighted, and it's good to not, underestimate how important that is when you're lifting your feet, 160,000 times during a race. The smallest difference makes a difference, and I don't think they're ultra light or anything. And like my other video, look, if you want the specs specifically, you can go on their website. I'll put it here, but that's not the goal of the review. The goal is really how it feels, and it felt that this was much more lightweighted. Something else I actually appreciate with these shoes, it's pretty simple, like tying system. I mean, nowadays you have fancy things like boa and things like that I actually do prefer over normal shoelace, but I actually appreciate the quality of these shoelace, which sounds silly, but I actually really felt that I could have a good grip. And the, well, I don't know the name of that, I'm sorry, that's my French coming out, but even though it's pretty thin, they actually have some reinforcement, which for me landed perfectly where I was actually tying. So I didn't have too much pressure on my feet and it was not kind of cutting my feet. But at the same time, I was really able to tie them and really, again, that goes back to being a technical shoe. I don't want my feet to be sliding inside. So I was really able to tie it very, very well. The shoelace was allowing me that. So little detail that I really appreciate with that. The other thing is that they're actually pretty durable, and I think I've tested quite a few La Sportiva, and I think La Sportiva in general have pretty good quality shoes. I mean, sure, like the underneath is kind of getting destroyed, but if you look at the rest of the shoe, it's totally fine. Like it's dirty, yes, but all of the fabric, everything is still in place. There's nothing like that is sticking out or anything. So the first thing that will kind of be destroyed with that, well, probably, it's the absorption at some point. But even now, I've run around 200 miles with them, and they're still totally fine with that. And the other need starting to be a little bit less deep, but they're still probably looking at it. I probably have, I would say, twice the distance to go at least. So maybe I would reach 400, 500 miles before feeling that I really, really need to change these shoes. And it does matter. Durability is something that really does matter. If we then look at the things that, not that I didn't like, because actually I think they strike the right balance with everything, but just comparing it a little bit to the Akasha. First of all, it's pretty obvious that the Akasha are very, very, very stiff. It's hard to show it on the camera, but also if you look at the toe, the protection that you get is much stronger on the Akasha. So if you're running on something that has a lot of rocks and if you run on a trail that has a lot of rocks and you're gonna bump your toes, the Prodigio, it's not solid at all. So you're actually potentially gonna hurt your toes and potentially lose your toenail. I mean, that's part of the game, but that was one of the things that I actually like with the Akasha compared to the Prodigio. Similarly, the fabric overall, here you're going for something that is here with the Prodigio, you go with something, that is very light and breathable, but also doesn't really protect you. Whereas on this one, you almost have like an extra layer of protection. So it's a full plate armor for your feet. Most of the time it doesn't matter, but if there's snow, if there's a lot of things that are going to hurt your feet, the Akasha was kind of the hardcore shoe for very hardcore trail, especially if you're in the element. Whereas this is something you go on trail, you go have fun, you can still do a crazy race like Diagonale des Fous, and it's perfect for that. But you have to find the right balance of protecting your feet, but also something that is breathable. The other thing that I would mention, I think from my experience, it's been true for all of La Sportiva, is that they tend to run a little smaller than other shoe brands. So as much as possible, try to try them in the shop before buying them. For me, I should have gone maybe half a size to a full size bigger. At the end of the day, I don't think it necessarily messed up my feet too bad. What really messed up my feet is that the race took something like 50 hours with soaking wet feet the whole time. So just the fact that I was able to keep these shoes for 50 hours soaked and have decently okay feet is absolutely bunker. Look, I love these shoes, and I'm super biased of all of the La Sportiva shoes that I've tried. These are actually my favorite. One thing that I wish they would improve potentially is kind of this here. I feel it's a little bit too basic. They could get something that is a little bit nicer, maybe something that kind of wrap around your ankle to prevent pedal. That was not an issue at Reunion Island, Diagonale des Fous. You don't really have these pedals, but if you would be running in the desert or something like that, I think that would be helpful. At the same time, I don't know that I would necessarily take these shoes for running in the desert, because you don't need something that is overly technical. I think these shoes really shine in an environment where it's very technical, very muddy. So obviously Diagonale des Fous, these were the perfect choice for that. If a race like Hurt 100 miles, so like those jungle race or high mountain race can be really appropriate shoes for that. But if they want to upgrade it themselves, they should really work on something different here. Also, there's another brand of shoes that does something on the back here that is actually helping my Achilles that I hope these guys would do. Something that you see more on road running shoes, but being applied to trail running shoes has helped me personally, so that's something to consider potentially. But that's it, folks. This is my opinion of the La Sportiva Prodigio. Honestly, I love these shoes. These are my favorite shoes of the La Sportiva line so far. As I've mentioned, I've tried, the Akasha and the Prodigio, and they're very different shoes. Use that if you're going to bump your feet, if you're in the snow, if it's that kind of weather. Otherwise, you go for these shoes and you'll have a great time on it. These shoes I think can be fine for 100 mile. If I was doing a 200 miler, I might not do that. I might do something that is a little bit cushier, but that's really the balance that I was mentioning before between having something that is super cushy and like kind of being on cloud, but at the same time not super responsive. You don't really feel what's underneath your feet, which for something that is faster and shorter, you want something that is very responsive. And I think these shoes are actually having a wide range of application. So really, I was positively surprised by these shoes. I mean, I guess it was not necessarily a surprise. I had heard a lot of really good thing about these shoes, but it's always pleasant when you try shoes and you like them yourself, because at the end of the day, it's always very personal and always depends a little bit on the trail that you're using. But I'm curious to hear, what do you think? Have you tried the La Sportiva Prodigio or even potentially the Akasha? Comparing them, what do you like about them? What don't you like about them? Are there other shoes that you would want me to review? Please let me know in the comments below. I hope this video was helpful. As always, please leave a thumbs up, share with your friends, and see you next time.